Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Independent Podcast. I'm Fernando Garcia, your host, and I'm here with Jesse Navarro. Jesse is a longtime public servant who has worked with both the San Diego Police Department and the San Diego District Attorney's Office. Jesse, welcome, and thank you so much for being here. I'd always like to start off by asking if you can tell me a little bit about your background, where you grew up, what got you into becoming a police officer and why you chose that path?
Absolutely, Fernando. It's been a privilege. It's been a long story. I was born in Tijuana, close by from here. Yeah. We emigrated along with my brothers and my mother and my stepfather, emigrated to this beautiful country that emigrated and started living close by over here, Normal Heights. Yeah. I was raised in the area. I used to do trick-or-treating in Kensington. Yeah. And I went to Wilson Middle School. And then from Wilson, I went to Hoover. But it was different times, Fernando, different times. When I went to Wilson and Hoover High School over here in the area, we were truly, truly minorities. They used to call us minorities. They used to call us other names. Yes. I'll give you a quick example. In a school of over 1,000 kids, at the Wilson Junior High, there must have been no more than 20 Latinos. Wow. No more than that. Wow. And, it was different times. It was 1961. So it was very different. We were truly minorities. I think there was only like 5 African Americans, maybe 20 Latinos. And out of the 20 of us, there was a few of us that arrived here, did not speak a single word of English. Wow. And there was no bilingual education back then. So it was either sink or swim. Right. That was it. Wow. From there, I went to Hoover, and by the time I got to Hoover, the benefit of that, Fernando, is that you are pressured to learn the language, to learn the history of your new country. And it was fun. You learn it, and it was good. By the time I got to high school, Hoover High School, things were a lot better. I did my high school time. I had a great time. I was involved in a lot of different things, especially music, a little bit of sports and music. We started, I think among us at Hoover, there must have been about 40 Latinos at Hoover. And we started a soccer team. Oh, wow. Los Amigos. And it was fine. So I'm getting ready to graduate from Hoover High School. And before you graduate, you speak to your counselor. And so I went to my counselor, and he said, "What would you like to do?" I want to sign you up. And I said, "I would like to be a police officer." And he looked at me, and it was pretty, I guess, it must have been a surprise. And he said, "What?" I said, "Yes, sir. I want to be a police officer." And he said, "Well, that's kind of an unusual, for somebody of your background." Really, what he meant for a Hispanic or a Latino or a Mexican, they used to call us Mexican American. Right. Yeah. And of course, they used to call us wetbacks and greasers and everything else. That was fine. That was part of the way things went. And he said, "Well, I don't know whether police work would be a good place for you, especially this is 1967 by now." Wow. And he said, "I don't know, you may have a difficult time because of your background. So I'm going to give you 2 choices. I'll sign you up at San Diego City College to be a welder or to be an auto mechanic." Wow. And I said, "Well, I don't want to be a welder. Right. I don't like the heat." So I said, "I'll take auto mechanics." I had a car, so I said, "Fine, I'll work on my car, change the oil every day, give it a tune-up every week," and it was fun. By the way, 3 months after graduating from high school, I got married. Oh, wow. I got married to my wonderful, beautiful girlfriend, Maria, from Tijuana. Okay. I used to spend, during the weekend here, I used to go down there, and I married Maria 3 months later. We married in December of 67. So I started going to community college. I had fun doing automotive. Later on, I finished community college, went on to work for Courtesy Chevrolet. Oh, wow. As an apprentice mechanic. And after I had 1 year probation. After almost 1 year, the supervisor came to me and he
Mhm.
said, Jesse, do you really want to be an auto mechanic?
Yeah.
And I said, yes, sir. You know, I was already married
Mhm.
and we had a child.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I said, yes, sir. Because I wanted to keep making $1.25 an hour.
Yeah.
You know, that was good money.
Yeah.
So he said, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Because we've noticed, we've been watching you, that every time you get oil or grease in your hand,
Yeah.
you wash it off right away.
Yeah.
So he came back a week later and he said, well, you're not going to make it. You're not going to make it as an auto mechanic. So I'm going to sign you up for something. I already signed you up for something else. I know you're a good kid.
Yeah.
And, you know, you're hardworking. So I signed you up at NASCO to be a welder.
Oh.
I said, oh, no. Oh, my God. NASCO.
Yeah.
He said, however, instead of making $1.25 an hour, you will be making $3.75 an hour to start. This is pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, it's pretty good money back then. So I said, okay. I went to work as a welder at NASCO.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, I hated that.
Yeah.
It was a good job. It was a wonderful job. NASCO was a good place.
Yeah.
But I hated to be a welder.
Yeah.
And so that kind of woke me up. And I said to myself, I'm going to continue with my dream.
Yeah.
And I ran across a San Diego police officer by the name of George Varela, who was an officer, kind of a young officer back then. And he kind of inspired me.
Yeah.
So I went to see him and I said, you know, Officer Varela, I really want to be, I don't want to be a welder. I don't want to be a mechanic. I want to be a police officer.
Yeah.
Good. I'll help you. I started taking criminal justice courses at Miramar College and went to that. I became a reserve deputy sheriff in order to, you know, look good. I wanted to look good on my resume.
Yeah.
I did all of that. And in March 15th, 1974, at 7 a.m, I started the San Diego Police Academy.
Wow.
I was a recruit at Miramar College as a police officer. That, you know, that was my dream job.
Yeah. Let me ask you, what made you want to become a police officer? What gave you, what was it about being a police officer that just drove you to, you know, to continuously pursue that?
Well, you know, Fernando, it's interesting because I used to get stopped by police officers on El Cajon Boulevard for, you know, driving too fast or drag racing and all of that. But the officers, you know, they were doing their job and they were always very, very polite. Yeah. And they looked good in uniform and I just admired the way they handled themselves. Yeah. So, but what really made me do it is having a conversation with Officer George Varela, who said, hey, look, this is a great job. Yeah. You will enjoy it. And that's, you know, a combination of those two things. That's what made me decide. Yeah. And it was interesting. Part of the reason that myself, other Latinos, African American and women came onto the police department in 1974, the federal government started putting a lot of pressure on law enforcement agencies throughout the country that they needed to have diversity in their police departments. And that, you know, that made it a little easier. We started the academy. More than half of us were, you know, they called us minorities. Yeah. Women, African Americans, and Latinos. Yeah. And it was fun. Yeah. It was great.
That's awesome. What were some of were there some initial challenges that when you finished the academy and came on the street? What were those challenges?
Well, you know, the real facts came on. The challenges is that some of the officers, some of the training officers felt that we were it was something different. We were forced by the federal government into becoming police officers. So some of the training officers were very, very, very rude, not supportive at all. Yeah. And it was very difficult. Yeah. They made it very difficult. Your training officer would make it very difficult during the probationary period. It would make it very difficult. Their goal, some of them were actually honest. Yeah. And they would say, look, my goal is to make sure that I eliminate you from being a police officer. Yeah. Not all of them, but some of them. That was their mission. Yeah. And that, you know, that made it very difficult. I've been I've been on for about a year, maybe perhaps a little more than a year, and I started noticing, Fernando, that some of the women, African American and Latinos, were terminated for no reason at all.
Yeah.
And the police department could do that during your probationary period.
Yeah.
And that was a process. They collected money from the federal government, and they were doing that. So I gathered a lot of them. Yeah. To be exact, I gathered 11 of them, Latinos, African American, and women, and heard about their stories. Yeah. And I was disappointed and shocked. And I said, that isn't right. You got to do something. Because they all wanted to be. They all had the same dream I did. Yeah. They wanted to be dedicated police officers. So I took on the challenge of taking on the fight. Mm-hmm. I went to the city. I went to the state. I went to the federal government. And then I proceeded to get a couple of attorneys in San Diego to represent all of us in regards to the practices of San Diego Police Department back then, and by now it's 1974. Yeah. Most of the attorneys in San Diego would say, absolutely not. We're not going to take on San Diego Police. Yeah. Then I came across an African American attorney by the name of Napoleon Jones, who later became a federal judge. Oh wow! And then attorney Roy Cáceres, who later became a judge also. Wow. They decided to take on this case with one condition. They said, Jesse, we'll take it on if you help us with the investigation. And I said, well, I'm still a police officer. Yeah. He says, well, yeah, it's going to be a risk. You got to do it on your own time. Yeah. But it's going to be risky. And they were right. Yeah. They were right. The moment the police department found out that I was doing this with the U.S. Civil Rights Commission, with the FBI, the moment they found out, they started making life quite challenging and difficult for me. Wow. But, that made me more, more persistent. Yeah. So we continued on. The fight, as a matter of fact, I had to leave. And move on to San Diego County Sheriff's Department for a while. Oh, wow. While the lawsuit was taken on. Yeah. 2 years later, we went to court. Yeah. And we won the battle. Wow. Won the battle, but probably lost the war. Yeah. Won the battle and won the lawsuit. Okay. Everybody came back except one officer. Okay. Everybody came back, and I continued on as a police officer for many, many years. And it was a great experience. I saw a lot of things, a lot of happy things. I was able to deliver 2 babies on the street. Oh, wow. But, I saw a lot of dead people. Yeah. I remember nearby over here, I was the second officer arriving at the scene of a plane crash here. Oh, wow. And there were 146 dead people spread over 2 blocks. Yeah. It was a challenging career. It was a great career, but I loved it. It's what I wanted to do.
I can imagine being a police officer, you meet a range of people. I mean, you meet angels and demons, I would say.
Yes, you do.
Can you tell me a little bit about some of those angels and demons you've met in your police, where you go, man, I can't believe how good that person, but I can't also believe how bad that person was. Are there any that stick out to you?
Yeah, it's a lot of angels. As we continue on in the career, more and more quote minorities started coming on, and we stuck together pretty well. There were a lot of angels. There were a lot of wonderful people on the street, and also the department started adjusting their demeanor in regards to minorities. Things started getting a lot better. Yeah. But there were some demons. There were some demons inside the police department. I'll even name one for you. Who was absolutely very difficult to deal with, and that was Assistant Chief Bob Bergreen. I will never forget. Yeah. Bob Bergreen wanted, basically, I don't think he liked minorities. Yeah. I don't think he wanted us. And I'll say this today, and I'll say it anytime. Yeah. He eventually became the chief of police. Oh, wow. However, Chief Bill Collender, he was a tough chief, but he was a kind man. Yeah. He was a good chief, and he was always caring. So you had a balance of those two things. And a lot of people on the street. Archie and I went on to work in Southeast San Diego with my partner, Archie Butts,
Okay.
who was eventually executed by gang members in November 4th, 1978. 1978, I arrived at the scene, and I will tell you, even to this moment, I will tell you, when I arrived at the scene and I saw my buddy laying on the street, had been shot several times by gang members who wanted to execute me, but they got to Archie first. That was one of the most difficult times in my career. I saw him, I got to him very close, and he was only barely able to say, "My family, please, my family." And I carried that for the rest of my life. I stayed in touch with his family, and for many years, I took on a battle to have a building recognizing Officer Archie Boggs in memory of Archie, and I took a battle of making sure that the cop killer remained in prison, and I was successful in that battle for many years until a few months ago. That a local judge against our desire decided to let him go free.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry to hear about a partner that, I can't imagine something like that. These are sometimes the stories that people don't hear about police officers that they have to carry with, because, that's something, you're still carrying that with you.
Well, I do. Not only that, Fernando, a year later, in 1979, a young man that I had recruited from a school to become a police officer, he was run over and killed by a drunk driver not too far away from here on Fairmont and Interstate 8. And then 2 years later, a young man that I was under my training, he responded to a domestic disturbance, and he was shot and killed. So those things you kind of live with him, but you gotta keep on. But the good thing about it, I was able to train. I became a training officer, and I was able to train many wonderful officers that were successful in their career, and I have good memories of that.
That's good. How did your? I'm going to kind of. We have something in common. Both of our wives are from Tijuana, so we have that. And I know, being a police officer, you have to have a support network,
Absolutely.
And especially at that time when you took on the police force, you've had, colleagues pass away. How was that also on your family and your wife and all that? And how did that play out?
Fernando, there were difficult times in my family. My wonderful, dedicated Maria, she ended up having to get a job. Both of us worked very hard. She ended up having to get a job and raising the kids, raising 4 kids. And it was very difficult. Sometimes we had very little money or no money at all during the battle. But she was dedicated. She was always supportive of what I was doing. Always. Sometimes I wanted to give up. I said, I can't deal with this anymore. And she said, no. You made a promise to your friends that you would be there for them. And you got to keep your promise. And I did. She was very supportive and continues to be supportive of my career.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
In terms of, I would assume that the racism or the prejudice inside of the police department has changed over the years, and I'm assuming for the better. I'm assuming
things have changed a lot.
Okay, good. What are some other things that you have seen change for the better? Is there things that you had to deal with as a young officer that new officers don't have to deal with? That's actually a better thing. It could be anything from better pay, benefits. What is it now about being a police officer that's different than outside of maybe the prejudice that some people had to face?
I would say to you, because I continue dealing with law enforcement officers, not only San Diego Police, but during my capacity as a part of the District Attorney's Office, I dealt with every law enforcement agency. Interesting enough, including some of the officers that treated me really, really bad. They at the DA's office, they were under me. But I gave my hand and shook hands, and everything's fine. Law enforcement now, the good thing is that they get a lot better pay. It will never be enough for what they do. They get better pay, excellent benefits, a lot more support, from the law enforcement agencies. things are a lot better.
Yeah.
The problem that we're having in law enforcement now, and many police departments are having the problems recruiting, is because as a result of different things in the country, like Black Lives Matter and other reasons, many people have for bad reasons are not supporting law enforcement.
Yeah.
So police departments are having a lot of struggles recruiting and maintaining police officers, and it's difficult. I mean, San Diego Police Department, I think they must be down at least 200 officers.
Yeah.
Chula Vista Police, that I'm very close to them,
Mhm.
they're down about 25 officers.
Wow.
So many law enforcement agencies are facing, a lot of, they're understaffed,
Yeah.
totally understaffed.
Yeah.
And it makes it difficult for them, but it also makes it a bit difficult for our communities
Wow.
because officers are not able to respond as quick as possible. Some of the other things that have not been good to law enforcement agencies, and I'll talk about one thing that is controversial. We used to call it the sleeper hold, which they call it the chokehold.
Yeah.
We used to do that not to kill people,
Yeah.
simply instead of shooting somebody, instead of beating somebody, you are properly trained to put the sleeper hold on somebody. You put him down, you handcuff him, and nobody gets hurt.
Yeah.
The person doesn't get hurt. The officer, they took that away.
Wow.
Okay,
Yeah.
they've taken away. They've taken away a lot of good tools that police officers can actually use when they were good tools in order to avoid having to shoot somebody.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of restrictions, a lot of new laws that are putting a lot of restrictions on law enforcement officers.
Now, is something like that with the chokehold, is that usually handed down by the federal government or state government, or is that something that like the local government can actually reinstate if they wanted to? Do you know how that would, like if San Diego PD or in the mayor's office decide, hey, we want to bring that back, is that something they could bring back, or is it a little bit maybe?
It's going to be. It is my understanding that the sleeper hold has been prohibited statewide.
Okay.
It's not a federal issue.
Okay.
It's a state issue. I think they passed a law in California, to the best of my knowledge, that is against the law for officers to do that. They also wanted to restrict the use of dogs.
Yeah, I saw that too. Yeah.
Recently, I mean, my goodness, those are tools. They're not, they're tools to protect the public, but also to protect the officers.
Yeah.
Those tools are, once they become state law, it's very difficult for any local police department to reverse them.
Yeah, that's difficult. Yeah, it seems like I heard somebody talk about recently politically, it's kind of like we defund the police, then we demoralize, then it becomes a demoralization, and then and then all of a sudden now we're dealing with, I think San Francisco actually, they're down, I think 600 officers, and unless it's an emergency, I mean you can't respond.
And the tragedy of all this, you're putting officers in more severe danger. But the real tragedy is to our communities. People are calling, they're calling for help, and it's taking officers at least twice the time to respond to critical calls because they don't have enough officers. So eventually the communities are going to realize that, and I'm hoping that eventually our elected officials will turn around and give officers the tools they need in order to protect all of us from the things that happen every single day.
What would you say if somebody a young person coming up, maybe out of college or high school or military, who's interested in law enforcement, what advice would you give them for the long term? Is there something that you maybe a phrase or something that you really stick by to say, hey, if you're going to do this for the rest of your life, this really worked for me, or what advice would you give to somebody?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. After working almost 45 years in this wonderful career, one of the things that I do now is I mentor young people. During my police career, I trained a lot of officers, but now as a semi-retired, I mentor a lot of young people that want to be prosecutors, they want to be attorneys, they want to be public defenders, they want to be police officers, and I mentor them. And what I do, I talk to them, find out exactly what is it that they want to do, and then I get them to spend some time at the police department, maybe start as a cadet, maybe start as a community officer, and really explore all of the things that a police officer does. Then I also get them to spend some time doing ride-alongs with police officers so they can truly find out if that's exactly what they want to do. And it's been very beneficial. I'm very proud that I've been able to mentor and help and open the doors for young people that are now police officers, deputy sheriffs, prosecutors, a lot of different things. And I feel good about being able to encourage and mentor young people that want to realize their dreams. Police work is a great job. Is it dangerous? Of course it's dangerous. Of course it is. But with the proper training and good common sense, the most important thing in police work is sometimes you got to be tough. Sometimes you got to be compassionate. Sometimes, it's good common sense. You use your good common sense. And that's very important.
I thank you for the work you do, because, there's a lot of people out there who want to complain about the police, but they don't want to do anything to help them or make the situation better. And I've always felt like if people out there feel we need a better police department or better police, then we need to go out and get better people and find people qualified and encourage them to join the police force. And, people like yourself who are mentoring those people and helping them, I can't thank you enough. Because we need those people out there.
Absolutely. Police work, they're there to protect us. They're there to serve. On the other hand, if you come across a police officer that is rude, that is racist, that is rude, that is incompetent, that is abusive, please, you must report that. You must get involved and report that, because no police department wants to have any officers they're conducting themselves in a negative manner. By all means, every police department would welcome any information about the good officers, but also any officer that is not doing the right thing.
Awesome. And you had transitioned from being a police officer to working for the district attorney's office.
Yes.
Tell me a little about why you did that. How was that? How was that different? If you don't mind, how did that start off?
It's interesting. I never expected that. After I left the police department, I spent almost 15 years. Myself and a retired lieutenant from San Diego PD, we started binational investigative agency working for the federal government and the state government, doing some very critical investigations all over the U.S. And I even traveled throughout Mexico doing some very delicate investigations. I did that for about 15 years, very successful. And then, must have been sometime in 2002, Judge Bonnie Dumanis decided that she wanted to be the first woman to run to be elected DA. So, because I was very involved in the community, she asked me if I could help her during the campaign, which I did. She was an excellent person, the right person. Despite all of the challenges that she had, she became the DA in the beginning of 2003. And she says, I need somebody to represent me throughout the community. Throughout the community, she says, you made a lot of recommendations about the DA's office needed to be more inclusive, be more accountable to the people of San Diego County. So she made me an offer, and I talked to my real boss, my wife, and my wife says, I don't want you traveling all over the U.S., all over Mexico. I took the job, and let me tell you, that was another wonderful decision. I started as a community relations officer for the DA. I worked days and nights and weekends and holidays because I loved what I was doing. Eventually, I got promoted to a special assistant, and I was dealing with law enforcement agencies, community groups, tribal governments, Mexican government. I was dealing with the media, everything else. Even though I worked a lot, but I loved it. I had wonderful 15 years working at the DA's office, serving the entire county of San Diego, and I tell you, incredibly rewarding. And to this day, I still that gave me the opportunity to help people that are in need when they become victims of a crime. After almost 45 years of experience, gives me the knowledge to help people and guide them in the right direction. And I tell you, my career ended at the DA's office, and it was a wonderful ending.
Awesome.
A wonderful ending.
Yeah.
I loved it. I worked along prosecutors and investigators and support staff and clerical, all dedicated people at the DA's office. So in San Diego, I got to work with the city of San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
But at the DA's office, which is basically the top law enforcement agency for the county, I got to work with everybody.
Oh, wow.
Everybody. And that was a great career.
Yeah, nice. Now, throughout your career and where we're at now, what are some things that you really, where we're at right now with law enforcement in general, whether it's policing or the district attorney, what are some good things that you're seeing right now that we maybe need to do more on? Maybe there's a policy change that's really working, and then also, is there something, once again, a policy change that isn't working that you would maybe like to see changed? Is there something like on the good and the bad? Where are we going forward right now? Where are we going good? Where are we going bad?
All throughout the law enforcement agencies, police departments and district attorney's office, we need to be supportive of the law enforcement, but we got to hold law enforcement agencies, police officers, district attorney, any governmental. We also need to be involved and become knowledgeable about their duties and responsibilities and limitations. Yeah. We got to be supportive, but we also need to hold them accountable on some of the things they do. And all law enforcement agencies, what they need to do is, like Chula Vista Police Department does, put together a small group of community people that are dedicated and put together a small advisory group that can advise the law enforcement agencies or the district attorney's office or any other governmental agency as to what is going on in the community. What are the needs of the community? What are the complaints? What are people complaining about? And that's something that I started at the DA's office, and that's something that I'm doing with Chula Vista Police. Okay. And all police departments should have a small, dedicated group of regular community people that can tell them the good, the bad, and whatever, so they can listen to the community and respond effectively.
Awesome. Now, I want to show you had brought a picture.
Yes, I did.
So I want to show it here. So this is Mr. Navarro. I'm going to kind of put it up to the camera. So was this? How long were you into your career when this picture, you think? A year, 2?
I must have been, I was a traffic, next investigator, traffic division. I must have been on for about 5 years. 5 years. And that picture, I
love that picture. That's classic.
You know, that is my wife's favorite picture. And I said, why? She said, because that's one part of your life that you look great. And I said, well, is that it? She said, well, no, but I like that one. It's my wife likes it, and she's very proud of that.
Absolutely.
But this is the real me now.
Obviously, this is more of a Jesse Navarro now. You can see him as well, but always looking dapper. Jesse, I know that we're kind of on a time limit here, so and I really want to respect that, and I just want to say thank you for sharing your experience with me coming in here. I'm going to be sharing this. But what's next for Jesse? Is there anything that's next for you? I know you're retired, but it seems like you don't seem retired to me. But so is there something coming up that's next for you?
Yes, Fernando. Interesting question. I mean, after 45 years, and I'm not so young anymore, but I have a lot of love. I'm very grateful to God and the community for all the love and support they have given me. There's not a single day that I don't get a call from somebody in this county who needs my advice, my help, my guidance, victims of a crime or somebody who got in trouble. So I've been doing that for the past 4 years after retirement. But one of the things that have kind of a lot of people have encouraged me to do, and is to run for office. And that is something that I've been seriously contemplating.
You should.
Running for local office, no state office. I want to run for office where I can be effective in the community where I live. That's something that I would like to look into. I kind of looked into it already a little bit. There's some challenges, maybe because maybe a lot of people think that I'm too old for that. but I still have the energy, I have
Yeah.
the knowledge, and I have the passion. And
Absolutely.
that may be something, it could be city council,
Yeah.
it could be a school board, it could be a community college board, it could be the water board, whatever. But I think the best thing for my life
Mhm.
is to stay active as long as I can.
Yeah.
And if I can continue serving in my community in some capacity,
Mhm.
that's something that would probably bring closer to my career.
Yeah. Well, Jesse, thank you again. And once again, thank you for your service and everything you've done for the community and for, the young police officers coming up. I know it, right now it's a struggle for a lot of police officers, anybody in law enforcement right now. Hopefully we can be a part of changing that for the better and making it not so difficult to be, police officer. It's always going to be a hard job. I don't think that's ever going to change. But
It's always, Fernando, it's always going to be a challenging job.
Yeah.
But most of the people in law enforcement, they're doing it because that's what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, 95% of them are doing the right thing. They're doing a good job. They're dedicated. We got to be supportive. And like I said it before, we got to be supportive of our police officers,
Yeah.
but we also got to hold them accountable
Yeah.
to make sure that they're doing the right thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. So once again, Jesse, thank
Fernando,
you so much, and
Thank
good
you.
luck with whatever you decide to do next. And anything we can do to help you here, we will do that, and we will take it away. Thank you again, Jesse.
Thank you for the privilege and the opportunity, and I will continue to be a public servant.
Thank you so much, Jesse.
Thank
Have
you.
a good one.